I'm so sorry.
The investments failed. We've lost everything, the apartment, the company, everything.
Nathan Pierce stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his downtown penthouse, watching the city lights blur into streaks of gold and red below. At 38 years old, he had built Pierce Technologies from a garage startup into a billion-dollar empire. But tonight, that empire felt like sand slipping through his fingers. The lawsuit filed by former business partners threatened to destroy everything he had spent 15 years building. His reflection in the glass showed a man who had aged a decade and 6 months, dark circles carved deep beneath his eyes. Shoulders hunched under invisible weight, he loosened his tie with trembling fingers, the fabric suddenly feeling like a noose. 36 hours without sleep had left him hollow, moving through the world like a ghost in an expensive suit. The disastrous board meeting earlier that evening still rang in his ears. Investors demanding answers he did not have. Lawyers presenting scenarios that all ended in ruin. Employees looking to him for reassurance he could not give. He was supposed to be the steady hand, the brilliant mind, the fearless leader. Instead, he felt like a fraud, barely holding himself upright. The unexpected present moved toward the kitchen, hoping cold water might shock some clarity into his foggy mind. He did not expect anyone to be awake at this hour. The penthouse usually fell silent after 9, his small staff respecting the boundaries of his private space. But as he rounded the corner, soft light spilled from the kitchen, and he stopped short. Sophia Chen stood on her toes, reaching toward the top cabinet, her silhouette outlined by the warm glow of the pendant lights. She wore simple clothes, a gray sweater, and black jeans, her dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. There was nothing extraordinary about the scene, yet something about her presence made Nathan forget to move. She had only started working for him 3 weeks ago, hired by his house manager to handle evening cleaning and occasional meal preparation. He barely knew her beyond polite greetings and brief nods. She turned, sensing him before he made a sound, and their eyes met across the kitchen. No surprise registered on her face, only a calm awareness that unsettled him. Most people either rushed to accommodate him or avoided his gaze entirely. Intimidated by his status or his reputation for being emotionally distant, Sophia didn't either. She simply looked at him, really looked, as if she could see past the expensive watch and tailored suit to something underneath. Moment of collision, Nathan tried to speak, to offer some explanation for standing there staring, but his exhausted brain could not form words. He reached for the counter to steady himself, and his hand caught the edge of a ceramic bowl. It tipped, crashed to the floor, and shattered into a dozen pieces. The sound seemed too loud, too violent for the quiet apartment. He bent down automatically to pick up the fragments, but Sophia moved faster. She knelt beside him, her hands already gathering the larger pieces with practiced efficiency. Her fingers brushed his once, barely a touch, yet he felt it like an electric current up his arm. He pulled back, startled by his own reaction. "Leave it," he said, his voice rougher than intended. "I can handle it." Sophia paused, then sat back on her heels, studying him with those impossibly steady eyes. "Can you?" The question hung in the air between them, weighted with meaning he did not want to examine. Nathan opened his mouth to dismiss her, to reassert the professional distance that should exist between them, but the words died in his throat, because the truth was, he could not handle it. He could not handle any of it anymore. The confession that shattered everything. Sophia stood slowly, not breaking eye contact. She took 2 steps closer, stopping just within arm's reach. The city lights behind her created a halo effect around her dark hair, making her seem almost otherworldly. When she spoke, her voice was low and clear, cutting through every defense he had constructed. "If you need to fall apart," she said, "you can do it here. I will not tell anyone." Nathan felt something crack inside his chest. A fissure running through the concrete wall he had built around himself after his wife died 3 years ago. Nobody talked to him like this. Nobody acknowledged that beneath the billionaire facade lived a man who was drowning. His breathing became shallow, his vision starting to tunnel at the edges. "Why would you say that to me?" The question came out broken, almost angry, because kindness from a stranger felt more dangerous than any lawsuit. Sophia tilted her head slightly, and for the first time, he saw something shift in her expression. Not pity, but recognition. "Because I know what it looks like when someone is carrying too much," she said quietly. "I know what it sounds like when someone stops breathing properly because they forget they are allowed to need help." Nathan staggered back against the counter, his hands gripping the marble edge so hard his knuckles turned white. No one had spoken to him with such naked honesty in years. His world was filled with people who wanted things from him, who saw him as a resource to extract value from, who needed him to be strong so they could remain comfortable in their own weakness. But this woman, this stranger who cleaned his kitchen and asked for nothing, saw straight through him. The weight of being seen. "You do not know anything about me," Nathan whispered. But even he heard the lie in his own voice. Sophia crossed her arms. Not defensively, but as if holding herself back from reaching out to him. "I know you have not eaten a full meal in days. I know you sleep on the couch in your office because your bedroom feels too empty. I know you hide your wedding ring in your pocket when people are watching, but put it back on when you think you are alone. I know you are terrified that if you stop moving for even 1 second, everything will collapse." Dobbs. Each observation hit him like a physical blow. How long had she been watching? How much had she seen? Nathan felt exposed, raw, as if someone had peeled back his skin to reveal the terrified, grieving man underneath. His breath came in short gasps now, panic clawing at his throat. "Stop," he managed to say, but it came out as a plea rather than a command. Sophia took 1 step back, giving him space, but her eyes never left his face. "I am not trying to hurt you," she said softly. "I am trying to tell you that you do not have to be okay all the time. Not here. Not with me." The kitchen fell into silence, broken only by the distant hum of the city below and the harsh sound of Nathan's breathing. He stared at this woman who had somehow seen everything he worked so desperately to hide. And he realized with startling clarity that he was standing at a crossroads. He could shut down, rebuild his walls, send her away and return to the suffocating isolation he had grown accustomed to, or he could do something he had not done in 3 years. He could let someone in. His hands finally released their death grip on the counter. His shoulders sagged, and for the first time since his wife's funeral, Nathan Pierce allowed himself to be vulnerable in front of another human being. "I do not know how much longer I can do this," he admitted, his voice breaking on the last word. Sophia nodded slowly, as if she had been waiting for this moment all along. "Then maybe it is time to stop doing it alone." Nathan Pierce woke the next morning on the leather couch in his home office, disoriented and aching. Pale sunlight filtered through the curtains, casting long shadows across the hardwood floor. For a moment, he forgot where he was, forgot the weight pressing down on his chest. Then reality crashed back like a wave. The lawsuit, the failing company, the conversation with Sophia that had left him feeling stripped bare and strangely lighter at the same time. He sat up slowly, running his hands through his hair, and noticed a blanket draped over him that had not been there when he collapsed after their kitchen encounter. A glass of water sat on the side table with a small note beside it. "Hydration helps exhaustion. Breakfast is in the warmer when you are ready." No signature. But he recognized the neat handwriting from the grocery lists. She sometimes left for his house manager. Something shifted in his chest. An unfamiliar warmth that felt almost painful after years of emotional numbness. He picked up the glass and drank, surprised by how thirsty he was, how much his body needed this simple care. When had he stopped taking care of himself? When had survival become his only objective, pushing out everything else that made life worth living? The weight of yesterday's daughter Mia's voice carried down the hallway, bright and clear, talking to someone in the kitchen. Nathan checked his watch. 7 in the morning. He had actually slept, really slept, for almost 5 hours. The most rest he had gotten in months. He stood, folding the blanket with mechanical precision, trying to smooth out the evidence of his vulnerability. When he entered the kitchen, he found Mia sitting at the breakfast bar, her small legs swinging as she ate pancakes shaped like stars. Sophia stood at the stove, flipping another batch, listening intently as his 7-year-old daughter explained something about her upcoming school project on planets. The morning light caught the delicate features of Sophia's face, highlighting the quiet strength in her posture, the gentle patience in how she responded to Mia's enthusiastic chatter. Mia's face lit up when she saw him. Miss Sophia made star pancakes. Look, that one is supposed to be Jupiter because it is really big. Nathan managed to smile, though his daughter's joy felt almost blinding after so much darkness. That is amazing, sweetheart. His eyes met Sophia's across the kitchen, and something unspoken passed between them. Not awkwardness about last night, but an understanding that things had changed. Learning to see Sophia. It placed a plate in front of the empty stool beside Mia, without asking if Nathan wanted breakfast. The simple assumption that he would eat, that he should eat, felt like a radical act of care. He sat down, suddenly aware of how long it had been since he shared a morning meal with his daughter. Business calls usually pulled him away, or he skipped breakfast entirely, surviving on coffee until noon. As Mia talked about her teacher and her friends, Nathan found himself watching Sophia work. She moved through the kitchen with quiet efficiency, cleaning as she went, never rushed, but never idle. There was something meditative about her movements, as if she found peace in the simple act of caring for a space. He wondered what her life had been before this job. What experiences had taught her to read people so accurately? To see pain that others missed? Miss Sophia's father was really sick once, Mia said suddenly, pulling Nathan from his thoughts. She told me about it yesterday when I asked why she always makes sure I take my vitamins. Nathan's attention sharpened. Sophia glanced over her shoulder, a flicker of something vulnerable crossing her face, before she turned back to the dishes. It was a long time ago, she said quietly, but Nathan heard what she did not say. He recognized the tone, the careful distance people put in their voice when talking about losses that still hurt. How long did you care for him? He asked, keeping his voice gentle. Sophia's hands stilled in the soapy water. A long moment passed before she answered, For years. Lung disease. He was a factory worker most of his life. She pulled her hands from the sink, drying them on a towel with slow, deliberate movements. By the end, I could tell what he needed before he asked. You learn to read the small signs when someone you love is suffering. Recognition and shared pain, the words settled over the kitchen like snow, quiet and transformative. Nathan understood then why she had seen through him so easily. She had spent years watching someone struggle to breathe, learning to interpret the language of barely concealed agony. She knew what pride looked like when it kept someone from asking for help. She knew how exhaustion changed the way a person moved through the world. I am sorry, Nathan said, meaning it in a way he rarely meant anything anymore. Sophia turned to face him fully, leaning back against the counter. He taught me something important before he died. He said that strength is not about carrying everything alone. Real strength is knowing when to let someone help carry the weight. Mia looked between the two adults, sensing something significant, even if she could not name it. Like how you helped Daddy by making him eat breakfast, she said with the innocent wisdom of children. Sophia's lips curved into a small smile. Exactly like that. The cracks began to show after Mia left for school with the morning driver. Nathan found himself lingering in the kitchen instead of rushing to his home office. Sophia was wiping down the counters, giving him space without leaving the room. The silence between them felt comfortable rather than awkward. As if last night had opened a door neither of them knew how to close. I was not always like this, Nathan said suddenly. The words escaping before he could stop them. Closed off. Unable to sleep. Running myself into the ground. Sophia paused but did not turn around. Grief changes people. Everyone keeps telling me it has been 3 years, that I should be moving forward by now. Nathan's hands clenched into fists on the counter. They do not understand that moving forward feels like leaving her behind. This time Sophia did turn, and her eyes held such understanding that Nathan felt his throat tighten. Moving forward does not mean forgetting, she said softly. It means learning to carry the love without letting the loss destroy you. Nathan blinked rapidly, fighting back the emotion that threatened to overflow. How did you do it? After your father? Sophia crossed the kitchen, and a gesture that should have felt too familiar but somehow did not, sat on the stool beside him. Not touching, but close enough that he could feel her presence like warmth from a fire. I let myself break, she admitted. Completely, messily break. I cried for days. I screamed into pillows. I let myself fall apart because I knew that was the only way to put the pieces back together differently. The breaking point approaches. Nathan's phone buzzed insistently in his pocket, shattering the moment. He pulled it out to see 15 missed calls from his lawyer, 3 from his CFO, and a string of urgent text messages. The real world came crashing back, demanding his attention, pulling him back into the chaos he had briefly escaped. I have to go, he said, standing abruptly. The company. There are meetings. Sophia nodded, understanding in her eyes. Of course. But as Nathan moved toward his office, her voice stopped him. Nathan. It was the first time she had used his first name, and the intimacy of it made him turn back. You cannot save your company if you destroy yourself in the process. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is admit you need help. He stared at her, this woman who barely knew him but saw him more clearly than people he had known for years. I do not know how to do that, he confessed. Then maybe, Sophia said gently, it is time to learn. The crisis deepens. The rest of the day unfolded like a nightmare. We sever silence since three major clients threatening to pull contracts. Stock prices dropping by the hour. Nathan sat through video calls and conference rooms, his mind sharp but his body failing. By mime afternoon, his hands shook so badly he had to hide them under the table. His vision blurred at the edges, exhaustion and stress combining into something dangerous. His CFO, Robert, pulled him aside after the 4th meeting. Nathan, you look like death. When did you last eat? Sleep. I am fine, Nathan said automatically. The lie so practiced it came out smooth. You are not fine. None of this is fine. Robert's face was tight with worry. The company needs you functional, not martyring yourself. But Nathan could not stop. Stopping meant thinking, and thinking meant feeling. And feeling meant confronting the massive weight of everything that had gone wrong. So he pushed through another meeting, then another. His body moving on autopilot while his mind screamed for rest. The moment everything changes, he returned home after midnight. Tie hanging loose, suit jacket, long abandoned in some conference room. The penthouse was dark, except for a single light in the kitchen. Nathan moved toward it like a moth to flame, knowing somehow that Sophia would be there. She sat at the breakfast bar, a book open in front of her, a cup of tea steaming beside her elbow. She looked up when he entered, and her expression shifted immediately from calm to concerned. You should not be standing, she said, standing herself. I am fine, Nathan said, but his voice sounded hollow even to his own ears. Sophia crossed to him in 3 quick steps. You are not fine. You are barely upright. She reached for his arm, and this time he did not pull away. Her hand was warm and steady, grounding him when the world felt like it was tilting. The company is going under, Nathan heard himself say, the words spilling out in a rush. 15 years of work. Thousands of employees depending on me. My daughter's future. All of it collapsing, and I cannot stop it. I cannot fix it. I cannot save any of them. His voice broke on the last word, and suddenly he was not standing anymore. His knees buckled, and Sophia caught him, guiding him to the floor with surprising strength. They ended up sitting against the kitchen cabinets. Nathan's head in his hands, his whole body shaking with the force of finally letting go. I cannot do this, he gasped between ragged breaths. I cannot be what everyone needs me to be. Sophia's hand found his back, rubbing slow circles the way someone might comfort a frightened child. Then stop trying to be everything, she said quietly. Just be human. Just be Nathan. And there, on the kitchen floor of his $1 million penthouse, the great Nathan Pierce fell completely apart. 3 years of grief, 6 months of crisis, decades of pressure finally breaking through the dam he had built. He cried for his dead wife, for his confused daughter, for the employees who trusted him. For the man he used to be before loss, taught him to fear feeling anything at all. Sophia did not try to stop him. She did not offer empty platitudes or uncomfortable reassurances. She simply stayed, her presence a quiet anchor in the storm, proving that sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is permission to break. Nathan woke with his cheek pressed against cool tile, disoriented and stiff. Gray dawn light filtered through the kitchen windows, painting everything in shades of silver. For a confused moment, he could not remember how he ended up on the floor. Then the memories rushed back, the complete breakdown, the sobbing that seemed to have no end. And Sophia sitting beside him through all of it. He sat up slowly, every muscle protesting, and found a pillow under his head that had not been there before. A blanket covered his shoulders. Across the kitchen, Sophia sat at the breakfast bar, her head resting on her crossed arms, fast asleep. She had stayed with him all night. The realization hit him with unexpected force. This woman who owed him nothing, who he barely knew, had chosen to remain on a hard kitchen floor rather than leave him alone in his darkness. Nathan stood carefully, not wanting to wake her, and studied her sleeping face. In rest, she looked younger, vulnerable in a way she never allowed when awake. There were faint shadows under her eyes, evidence of her own exhaustion. He wondered again about her life, the losses she had survived, the strength she had built from those broken pieces. She had given him something last night that no amount of money could buy. Witness to his pain without judgment. A shift in the foundation. He retrieved another blanket from the linen closet and draped it gently over her shoulders. Sophia stirred but did not wake, her breathing remaining deep and even. Nathan moved to the windows, watching the city come alive below. Usually, this view reminded him of everything at stake, the empire that demanded his constant attention. Today it just looked like buildings and lights, beautiful but impersonal, separate from the human connection that suddenly felt more important than any business deal. His phone sat on the counter where he had abandoned it hours ago, the screen dark and silent for once. He picked it up, scrolling through the accumulated messages, urgent emails, crisis updates, demands for his immediate response. But instead of the usual panic, Nathan felt something unexpected: clarity. Last night had broken something open inside him, and in the breaking, he could finally see what mattered. The company might fail. The lawsuit might destroy his fortune. But he was still breathing. Mia still needed a father who was present, not just physically there, but emotionally available. And somehow, against all logic and reason, this woman sleeping in his kitchen had reminded him that being human was not a weakness to overcome but a truth to embrace. Confronting the past, Sophia woke an hour later to find Nathan making coffee, moving through the kitchen with uncharacteristic slowness, as if testing his own limits. Their eyes met, and neither looked away. The vulnerability of last night hung between them, impossible to ignore or dismiss. "Thank you," Nathan said simply, pouring a second cup without asking if she wanted one. "For staying." Sophia accepted the mug, wrapping both hands around its warmth. "I told you I would not tell anyone. That includes leaving you alone when you need someone most." They sat together at the breakfast bar, the early morning creating an intimate cocoon around them. Nathan found himself talking, really talking, in a way he had not done since his wife died. He told Sophia about meeting Rachel in graduate school, how she had been the only person who saw past his ambition to the insecure young man underneath. He described their wedding, small and perfect, just family and close friends. He talked about Mia's birth, how holding his daughter for the first time had terrified and transformed him simultaneously. "Rachel was the one who kept me grounded," Nathan said. Staring into his coffee as if it held answers, she reminded me that success meant nothing if I lost myself achieving it. When she got sick, everything happened so fast. 6 months from diagnosis to funeral. I kept thinking I had time, that we would beat it, that she would be there to grow old with me. Sophia listened without interrupting, her presence creating a safe space for words that had been locked inside him for years. "What was the hardest part?" she asked gently. Nathan's jaw tightened. Watching Mia lose her mother and knowing I could not protect her from that pain, realizing that all my money and power meant nothing against cancer, understanding that I was going to have to raise our daughter alone and having no idea how to do it without Rachel. "The walls come down. You are doing better than you think," Sophia said quietly. "Mia is loved. She knows her father cares even when he is struggling." Children are resilient when they feel secure. How can she feel secure when I am falling apart? Nathan's voice cracked with frustration. I am supposed to be strong for her. Sophia set down her mug and turned to face him fully. Nathan, listen to me. Strength is not pretending you are not in pain. Strength is showing your daughter that even when life breaks you, you keep going. You teach her resilience by being honest about struggle, not by hiding it behind a perfect facade. The words settled over him like a benediction, permission he did not know he needed. I have been so focused on not failing her the way I feel, I failed Rachel, he admitted. I cannot save my wife. I cannot let my daughter down too. You did not fail Rachel, Sophia said with quiet intensity. Disease is not a failure of love or effort. It is a tragedy that happened to you, not because of you. And you are not failing, Mia. You are surviving. That is enough. Nathan felt tears prick his eyes again, but this time they felt different. Not the desperate, broken sobs of last night, but something cleaner, almost healing. How do you know exactly what to say? Sophia's expression grew distant, memory flickering across her features. Because someone said similar things to me once when I thought I was drowning. A grief counselor at the hospital where my father died. She told me that we are not meant to carry impossible burdens alone, that asking for help is not weakness but wisdom. The confession that changes everything, did you believe her? Nathan asked. Eventually, it took time. Sophia paused, seeming to wrestle with something internal. Can I tell you something I have not told anyone else? Nathan nodded, sensing the significance of the moment. Sophia took a deep breath. When my father was dying, I was so focused on being strong for him that I forgot to let anyone be strong for me. I pushed away friends, stopped seeing the man I was dating, convinced myself that accepting support meant admitting defeat. By the time my father passed, I was completely alone. I had built such high walls that nobody could reach me. She looked directly at Nathan, her eyes holding his with unwavering honesty. It took me 2 years to realize that isolation was not protecting me. It was killing me slowly. I was surviving, but not living, just like you are now. When I started working here, I saw myself in you. The same walls, the same fear of being vulnerable, the same belief that accepting care somehow diminished your strength. Nathan felt his breath catch. Is that why you pushed me last night? Why you would not let me hide? Yes, Sophia admitted. Because I know where that path leads. I know what it costs to refuse help until you break completely. And I saw that you were close to a breaking point that might not have a way back. The truth in daylight, the admission hung in the air between them, charged with significance. Nathan realized that this was not just about his crisis or her empathy. Something real had formed between them, built on shared pain and mutual recognition. They had both survived losses that reshaped them. Both learned to hide behind walls that protected and imprisoned equally. I saw you the first night I worked here, Sophia continued, her voice soft but steady. You walked into the kitchen looking like a man who had forgotten how to rest. And every night after that, I watched you deteriorate a little more. I told myself it was not my place to interfere, that you were my employer, and I should keep professional distance. But I could not watch someone suffer when I knew exactly what that suffering felt like. Nathan reached across the small space between them, his hand hovering near hers on the counter. You saved me, he said simply. Last night, you saved me from myself. Sophia's eyes glistened with unshed tears. We saved each other, because being witness to your pain reminded me that I am not alone in mine, that we all carry invisible weights, and sometimes the bravest thing we can do is let someone else see how heavy they really are. Their hands touched, fingers intertwining with the tentative care of two people testing new ground. It was not romantic, not yet, but something deeper. Recognition, understanding, the beginning of a connection. It's built on truth rather than pretense. The crisis finds resolution. Nathan's phone buzzed, shattering the moment. He glanced at the screen and saw his lawyer's name. The real world demanded his attention again, but this time he felt different. Stronger somehow, despite having fallen apart so completely just hours ago. I have to deal with this, he said, but did not immediately pull his hand away from hers. I know, Sophia replied, but you do not have to deal with it alone anymore. Not if you do not want to. Nathan stood but turned back to face her. Will you stay? Not just for today, but through whatever comes next. I know I have no right to ask, and you can absolutely say no, but I need you to know that you have become important to me. Not as an employee, but as someone who sees me when I have spent years making sure nobody could. Sophia stood as well, a small smile playing at her lips. I will stay. On one condition, anything. You promise to actually let people help you. Not just me, but your friends, your family, professionals, if you need them. You promise to stop trying to carry everything alone. Nathan felt something loosen in his chest, a tension he had carried so long he forgot it was there. I promise. I am tired of drowning. I am ready to learn how to swim again. New beginnings. The morning unfolded with Nathan finally facing his crisis with clear eyes. He called his lawyer and admitted that he needed help restructuring the company. He reached out to his sister, someone he had pushed away after Rachel's death, and asked if she could spend more time with Mia. He scheduled appointments with a therapist, specializing in grief, and a business consultant who specialized in corporate turnarounds. Each phone call felt like removing a brick from the wall he had built around himself. Each admission of need felt like breathing after being underwater too long. The company might still fail, but he was no longer alone in fighting for it. And somehow, that made all the difference. Sophia stayed through the morning, not hovering but present, a steady reminder that vulnerability did not equal weakness. When Mia came home from school that afternoon, she found her father and Sophia making dinner together, laughing at a cooking mishap in a way the little girl had not heard her father laugh in years. "Daddy!" "You are smiling," Mia observed, with the delighted wonder of a child noticing something rare and precious. Nathan picked up his daughter, hugging her tight. "I am, sweetheart. I finally am." Later that night, after Mia was asleep and the apartment was quiet, Nathan found Sophia preparing to leave for the evening. They stood in the entryway, neither quite ready to say goodbye. "Thank you," Nathan said again, knowing the words were inadequate but needing to say them anyway. "For seeing me, for staying, for reminding me that being human is not something to apologize for." Sophia reached up, and in a gesture that felt both bold and natural, touched his cheek gently. "Thank you for letting me in, for trusting me with your pain, for showing me that opening up is not the same as giving up." They stood like that for a long moment, two people who had found each other in the darkness and chosen to walk toward the light together. The future was uncertain. The company's fate remained unresolved. But for the first time in 3 years, Nathan Pierce felt something he thought he had lost forever: hope in standing in his doorway. Watching this woman who had changed everything, he realized that sometimes the most profound transformations begin with a simple truth. We are not meant to survive alone. We are meant to find each other, to share our burdens, to discover that strength is not found in isolation, but in the courage to let someone see us as we truly are: broken, scared, imperfect, and beautifully, redemptively human. The end.